What's up, you guys? It's me, B. Riley. Welcome back to the channel. And today I should be doing responsible things. The rain has finally given up here in SoCal and I should be out at a park or something. But here's the thing. I just got home and I was actually waiting for a package. So I had to run out to the hardware store to pick up some contact cleaner real quick before the delivery got here. And when I got back, I realized that the driver had just left the package on my stoop. Now, typically this would be a problem for me, especially given the fact that I did a video 2 weeks ago talking about how a very expensive 1965 Fender had disappeared from my UPS shipment. However, I'm okay with it right now because of the fact that honestly, I admittedly actually wanted to just really play with this guitar. So today is new guitar day for me. Not necessarily a brand new guitar, but it's a new vintage guitar that needs a great deal of help. And this is going to be a multi-part series that we're going to be working on as well. So for those of you guys who are looking at me like, hey, you've been going a little heavy on the Gibson stuff lately, stay tuned right now. 1964 Fender Mustang, new guitar day, starts today. We're going to start taking this thing apart, but I just want to go through it and have a quick review before we get too far into it. Some guitars you start playing and you're like, oh, okay. Like, really? Oh, okay. Stop halfway through. This thing is so much fun that they should charge tickets for it like a ride. And you guys know that I'm very fortunate that I get to play a lot of really, really interesting guitars, but some of them are just such happy guitars. And this thing came in and I opened it up. I definitely saw some things that the seller had maybe neglected to mention. But this thing just doesn't seem to care. It's just a good, happy, weirdo guitar. And it just seems to be very, very pleased to be played. The tone is really great. I feel like the output is a little low. There's definitely something going on there we could definitely look at. You have to use a lot of gain to try to bump it up. But I had to stop halfway through because as dirty and neglected as this thing is. Some guitars just really hang on to that enthusiasm of playing. And I love that this thing, you know, was a student guitar back in '64, you know, when the Beatles were a new band. And the fact that through all that time and all that collectability and all that value gaining and appreciating, that this thing is still just a great player, just a happy player. You know, it's really encouraging to plug this thing straight away. I didn't even tune it. I think I tuned up the B a little bit. They didn't even slack the strings when they shipped it. Action's a bit high. Someone's gotten creative with, the hell is that? You know, call me crazy. But it looks like someone's used cut up bullet casings as sleeves to limit the fore and aft movement. But I just had to stop halfway through because this thing is stupid fun to play. And I'm really glad because, you know, I kind of have this philosophy, and this is a philosophy that I use in business with guitars, which is don't buy anything you wouldn't mind keeping for a very, very long time. Anyway, we should probably start taking this thing apart because if I don't, I'm just going to play it for the next 6 hours. Okay, so we got it here on the desk, and I'm not going to try to take it apart too far because I kind of still want to play this thing because it's that much fun. Luckily enough, the switches and everything are working. So if we take a quick cursory look at it, what we've got here looks to be, by appearances, a completely stock 1964 Fender Mustang. It still retains its nitrate pickguard. We can tell this because the nitrate is still shrinking. If we look here, we see our screws being pulled inboard. And essentially what's happening is the whole thing is shrinking down. You can see a gap right here that does not extend down to the body neck joint. You can see that it's lifting away. This is all typical and totally acceptable for a nitrate guard. Like we were talking about in the wide bevel episode, nitrate is a fairly unstable substance, and even though you don't want to put it near an open flame because you know you don't want your house to burn down, at the same time it does look really good when it's still together and when you don't need to cut it up. So we have a good intact pick guard that's going to clean up really well. We're just going to buff that. A lot of the pearlescent is being lost because light isn't getting down into the actual pearlescence, and that is because of this opaque surface. You know, something for you guys to note that Fender by now had already gone over to a lot of, you know, basically chrome plating, and that's where you get this type of, you know, decay on the finish, where you have full breaks in the finish and then it breaks into a raw steel finish. If this were nickel plated, you would kind of have that German nickel hazing. So we have chrome there. We do have some hazing on the scratch plate for the knobs, but a lot of that stuff looks pretty topical. It's going to come out. The arm for the vibrato, I'm actually really pleased that that's still there. I never actually get to use these because the arm is always missing. But it is bent, so we are going to have to maybe hit that with a torch to soften it very, very lightly since there's already finish breakage on the turn. Try to straighten that out because right now that happens. You're just running into it. So that's got to come out and get sorted out. Regrettably, unfortunately, the stamped serialized number plate has long since taken flight. Now before we get into it, here's something interesting to check on this. I don't know if you can see it from your angle here. I'll try to get a better angle. But this finish, even though it's a refinish, is checking heavily. Almost as if they left a little bit of the base coat there and the base coat continued to flash off and check. Now, another thing that you can kind of, you know, take as for as many grains of salt as you wish is that when you see checking, the more finite, the smaller, the more intricate the checking typically means that you have a thinner finish. It allows the finish to break in those pieces. But like concrete, the thicker it is, the bigger the checking or the cracking becomes. This is why when you have any type of finish break on a poly finish where it's very, very thick, the crack looks pretty severe. Whereas on nitro, you just get this infinitesimal checking. So what that tells me is that even though this is a refinish, this was either refinished with something so long ago that now the refinish has started to check, or the remnants of the original finish, at least the base coat, you know, the sealant, essentially the clear that they lay out on wood before they spray color, is still there in one form or another, which I could totally believe, because other than these hard hits here, here, and here, and a lot of scratch marks from sanding where they were just sanding in one direction, which you don't really want to be doing that on wood. You want to kind of get up to an orbital or a really fine grit. This looks like they were hitting it with 220, just going in one direction, putting a lot of very serious scratches in there. But it's possible that some of the finish is left underneath. We still have our original bridge here, which is pretty cool. And I thought that this was interesting, and I'll see if I can get a better shot about this. But, you know, there's two different schools of thought when you look at the bridges on these. And one of the schools of thought is that they don't want it moving back and forth. The original designers designed it so that the bridge would tip back and forth. Constantly talk to people and they're like, hey, I don't know why this is doing this. This must be broken. And then they go ahead and they sleeve it to fix it. Some other people are aware of the fact that it's supposed to be a tilt bridge, but they still sleeve it anyway. There's two different schools of thought on this. I'll leave you to decide which you think is best. But as far as whoever owned this, they wanted it sleeved because by the look of it, there are a pair of 9mm casings that have been used to sleeve the bridge. Pretty weird. Okay, so now for taking a look at the headstock, this is very interesting time travel right here. If you are looking at this, you can see by the way that I've positioned the light to show you that there is a serious batch of weirdness going on with the finish here on the headstock. But it's not all bad news. It would be very easy to look at this and sit there and say to yourself, gee, by that reflectivity, we've got a problem. Now, being that it's a 64, at this junction of time, Fender would have been clear coating these headstocks and then laying up the decal and then letting it sit on top of the actual lacquer. And you would always kind of have this dry look to it. The laminate was very forward. It was very up and in your face. Now, it appears as though somewhere in the ballpark of the 1970s, that some individual decided to literally paintbrush shellac or lacquer over the laminate. And that sounds kind of scary. And when you actually look at the, you know, the contour body, you can see a slightly raised edge there. And a lot of people would run to the, you know, to the deduction that this has been relaminated. But if you actually look at this brown oxide color inside Fender, that I have not seen anybody replicate that yet. I also, when we're looking at the small print here, we have no digitization. There's no pixelated response to it. And a lot of people producing laminates these days are still struggling with, you know, trying to get this fine print to really land in the right way. So what we know about this is the original lamb. The headstock has not been refinished. Someone simply decided to safeguard the headstock by brushing a clear lacquer over it. And they did it early enough where really, as we're looking at it, other than the texture, which is obvious it needs to be wet sanded and corrected and then buffed back, that the headstock is actually so clean, I kind of get the feeling that this happened early. I kind of feel like maybe this got purchased and somebody was familiar with how easy these were to damage, or maybe they had two guitars and they went to clean another one with some solution and the laminate came off and they got a little spooked, and then they went ahead and laid this up on it. Luckily enough, this is pretty easily repairable. Okay, so next thing we're noticing right here is that we've got a break in the fretboard from right there to right here, and at some point in the past somebody did a not good job of cleaning this and laying it up. When I drag the screwdriver from this surface to this, I can feel this catch. So we're gonna have to fix that. That's in a really bad spot. The nut is original, so that's nice. You can see right here what happens when that thick lacquer starts to give up the ghost. It starts to break. I'm really glad that this hasn't started right over the laminate, because when it does, you can see that this is bare wood beneath. So what had happened was when the lacquer cracked, it took the remnants of the original finish with it, And now we have an exposed piece of wood there. Something I also noticed about this, that there is a pair of impressions right here and here. I thought that's strange. They're so uniform that they must have been made at the same time. Like somebody had clamped down the neck. There's two little awl pins right there, like it had been secured in something. I don't know what's going on there. And when we actually look at the frets, we can look all the way up the fretboard. We've got such a singular emphasis on the frets that whoever it was doing mostly open chords on this guy. And when you look up the frets towards the 12th fret, the sweeps and the flat spots that you typically would find on a fretboard that had been used for a lot of soloing or bending up there are all pretty evenly worn and relatively untouched. So what that tells us is that this player was primarily sticking to chords, you know, and may have been a little bit more along the lines of singer-songwriter than a real shredder. Okay, here we go. We got our strings off, and like I was saying before, I'm gonna try not to totally disassemble it because admittedly I got a session this weekend and I kind of want to use it, see what it reacts like. So let's have a look under the hood at what we got here. Okay, so we still got the tin in there. And as I had mentioned before, the pickups have been replaced. I got a pair of DiMarzios in here. Okay, wiring looks original. Okay, so if we're looking right over here, we can see the remnants of our original finish. We've got Dakota red right here as a base, and then there's some black over it. Okay, this actually brings up an interesting thing here. What we see here is a single layer of Olympic white underneath the red. And Fender was periodically using alternate colors as kind of a base with which to shoot over, to basically as an isolator coat. We have our remnants of red right here. All the Mustangs came in blue or in red. It was Daphne blue or Dakota red. Luckily enough, I already have some Dakota red here, and I already have some Olympic white. And the reason I mention that is because this is one of the ones that had an isolator coat. So when you would have seen a fade on this around the arm or the shoulder, what I call the shoulder over here, where it rests against your forearm, you would have had the red break into a wide swath of white before it broke down to the wood finish. Here you see the white being used as an isolator coat. We scratched it just slightly here. We see it peering through right here. And then beneath it, we see this wood tone. And then right here, we've got this black. So what that means is this bad boy's been refinished twice. They shot the black over the red. And then after that, a couple years later, probably in the 1980s or in the 1970s, when everybody was refinishing everything to natural or to just, use stain from a hardware store, then they sanded it clean and refinished it just as a natural. Now, what I really want to do is take a quick look in the neck pocket. As was previously mentioned, the serial plate has run off. Makes me very sad, but you know what? What are you going to do? It's still a vintage guitar, and I can promise you that this little plate of steel on the back is probably not single-handedly destroying 70 years of tone or 60 years of tone, but instead just not looking all that fab. So we'll see if we can get a nickel-plated repro, and what we'll do on that is we'll do a serial number on it, but the serial number is just going to be zeros. And that is kind of my way of maintaining the allure of the guitar, making sure that the hardware is consistent with the aesthetic of the guitar, that it matches the guitar, but also at the same time so that the aesthetic can't be used to try to fool somebody later on into thinking that this is an original finish, somebody who doesn't have the time to check the neck pocket, which I can almost guarantee you is probably not looking too good right now, and that is what we're looking to find out. There's a little bit of finish left here. I can see some flecks of black here. The flecks of black stop right where the neck becomes protrusive to the body. So what that tells me is they sprayed the black with the neck on. This neck is going to need to be cleaned up really bad. This is all got to be resurfaced. This isn't right. There's original finish there I can see clearly here, but then this shellac. So what that tells me is not only did they paint this guitar black with the neck on it, they also clear coated the neck with the neck on it, because you can see here where it fell away. The neck itself on the back has not changed shape at all. There are no significant dings other than this one. Let's have a look at the neck pocket. Since we paid for the ticket, might as well see the movie. Oh, you know, that's actually not bad. We still have the pattern here. This is the factory pattern. At that time when they were spraying these, they were mounting them by the base plate. So you had a 2-screw mount right here, a flat plate that would sit there and hold the body up. So you would always have this section would be exposed to the actual body color. The truth of it is that whoever sanded this for the brown to refinish it last time did me a favor. They've basically left me an extremely soft, unprotected surface in which I can get in here with an orbital, hit it really fast, get it clean, and lay up a really nice finish. It's essentially just turnkey. It's ready to go. It's like having a kit sent to your house that's also historic. Well, there you go, guys. Just kind of a quick video to give you guys an intro with that guitar as it comes in. Obviously, there's a good bit of work that it needs doing, but it's kind of a refreshing reprieve once in a while to have a guitar comes in that just needs a little bit of aesthetic stuff, nothing heavy. Obviously, with the John Monroe SG, we have got a lot of work cut out for us on that. We still have to do those filler plugs. We still have to match that red nitro lacquer for the top and try to do all those fills and try to get it to look as much like one conceptual guitar as is possible versus the several that it is. So stay tuned for the Mustang and stay tuned for the SG as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And for those of you who have subscribed, I greatly appreciate that as well. Get a lot of really good feedback, and I gotta tell you, it's very, very encouraging for me and just really prattles me along, and I find myself working a lot faster and a lot better. You know, just stoked that people can really appreciate it and stuff like that. Here's to you guys, hopefully getting into your own projects at home and making your own noise as well. Have a wonderful day. Have a beautiful day. Go out, step out into the park and stand beneath a tree and, you know, let the wind sing to you for a little bit. And I will see you guys next week.